So I'm Raj Kumar, I'm the President and Editor-in-Chief of Devex, and we're here obviously at the World Economic Forum in Davos, where we are all week having lots of conversations. I'm with Hwang, who is the Chief Commercial Officer and the President of the global biopharmaceutical business at Pfizer, which is really the biggest part of what Pfizer does, right? It's a big part of the business.
It is the business.
It is the business, right? And the issue of health equity was always talked about here. There's a couple of billion people in the world who just don't have access to safe and reliable essential medicines. But since the COVID pandemic, it's like the top line issue, right? Everybody is probably talking to you about this.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to steal a few minutes with you on the sidelines of this to hear, what are you thinking about on this issue of equity and health equity? What are you doing about it?
Well, Raj, thank you for having me here today. It is super exciting to be here at Davos, and as you and I were saying, just the ability to meet such interesting people and learn things that we otherwise in our daily lives might not be thinking about. When I think about equity, I think it all begins with the value of equity and what it means to us at Pfizer. And at Pfizer, equity means that that every person deserves to be seen, to be heard, and to be cared for. And so I think those three words, really transcend into how we think about our colleague population as well as the patients and the people we serve. Very quickly, just talking and touching on equity in our colleague population. Diversity means a lot to us. We have diversity goals and their time frame by which we meet them. And I think that having clear metrics, really enables us to keep a focus on that and to ensure that we create equal opportunities for our colleagues to compete in roles and to have fair chances in enjoying, careers.
It's interesting you start with your internal issues, because I hear this from other companies here that when they go out in the world with a set of values, they want to make sure they're mirroring it internally
That's
first,
right.
so it feels real.
Well, it feels real, but also you want everyone to understand what that is and then be able to practice it.
Yeah.
And so if someone understands and knows and can identify with the fact that Pfizer is a company that believes in equity because they're being treated equitably, then they'll be better able to translate what that means to all the patients and people they serve. Because in the business that we're in, every single one of us, every single colleague, somehow, some way is linked to a patient. Beyond sort of our equity goals, I think just a big focus on ensuring that we create opportunities in different ways too. And so there are just a number of ways that we put the ability to have equal opportunity at careers at the top.
Yeah, and I guess it brings
list.
those perspectives to the fore internally as
Absolutely.
You're thinking about how do we reach underserved populations who don't have access to essential medicine.
Exactly. Then if you sort of turn that around and you think about patients and the people we serve, I think on that front, equity means that people who need medicine can get their medicines. And in this regard, it begins at the clinical trial stage, right? Like when you're conducting your clinical trials, it's really important to us. We have diverse patient populations in our trials because we want ultimately the patients to be treated to recognize that they are represented in our trials and they see themselves in our trials.
And historically that has not been the case, right?
Correct. So I'll give an example of, the COVID vaccine that we created in 2020, despite the fact that we did it at such, compressed timelines, 30% of our population in the COVID trials were from diverse populations, and it was that important to us that was not something that we would compromise, even when it was in a hurry, when we were moving at speed, because that was something that was really critical to preserve. I translate that into some of the efforts that we have to really create greater access for patients. I think about the patient assistance programs that we provide at Pfizer that with eligibility criteria enable patients to receive certain Pfizer medicines for free. If they meet certain criteria. And then I think about the Accord. The Accord for a Healthier World, which was our way of ensuring that the medicines, the innovative medicines that we have here at Pfizer can be made available to the low-income countries, which is 1.2 billion people.
Explain a bit more about the Accord, how it works.
Sure. Well, a year ago at Davos, we launched the Accord for a Healthier World. And at that moment, what we wanted to do was to take Pfizer's patented and innovative portfolio and to bring that to the 1.2 billion people in these low-income countries, because we felt that they were least able to access our innovative medicines. Fast forward a year, and the learnings that we've had in market, what we learned was that yes, those innovative medicines are really important, but equally are multi-source products. So what are multi-source products? Those are medicines that have lost patent. So generic companies, multiple companies can make them. And it was our thinking at the time that because multiple companies can make them, the countries could access them. But what we learned was that that was not always the case. Yes, they're available and multiple companies can make them, but they don't have the supply reliability nor the quality that our countries desire and want. And so the request came in for us to consider whether we would open our entire Pfizer portfolio to this program, and in a heartbeat we did that, right? Because it's the right thing to do, and I think it unlocked an insight we didn't have, that just because it's available does not mean that people can still access it, nor is it desirable. And so that's why at this Davos meeting, we have now expanded our portfolio beyond the original patented innovative products to all of Pfizer's medicines, which includes biologics, sterile injectables, as well as small molecule medicines.
Now, in a lot of the context we're talking about, I think it's 45 countries, right, low-income countries that you're focused on. It's not just the availability of the medicine, but actually getting it out to the people when and where they need it.
That's right.
How are you thinking about that aspect of it? Because there's a long history of pharmaceutical companies making drug donations, but finding that the uptake is very low because they haven't addressed some of those last mile questions.
No,
How do you think about that?
You're absolutely right, Raj. And I think that's why a core element of the Accord for a Healthier World was to understand and apply a model to scale approach to understand what does it take to use medicines and to be able to achieve outcomes in people and in patients and in communities. And so, we began with, we're beginning with 5 countries where we are, in addition to delivering the medicines, also working in country to understand what are the infrastructural and operational needs that that each country would need in order to use those medicines well.
You might need cold chain for some things, you might need skilled healthcare workers for others.
So it runs the entire gamut of, what is that country? What is that maybe therapeutic area, say cancer care? And based on that therapeutic area, what is it that will be needed as skills, as resources, as important logistics support to ensure that patients can actually take that medicine? Because in the end, you could make it available, but unless someone takes it, they haven't derived the benefit. So connecting the dots from delivery all the way to administering the product is a key element of the Accord. And in this regard, the Accord was also a call to action for us to ask for partners to Pfizer to help us achieve all of these steps end to end, right? Because we ultimately are a pharmaceutical company. We have skills, many great skills in many areas, but there are also a great many other companies and other stakeholders that probably have better skills in workforce training, as an example, or in diagnostics, as an example. All of these steps are just critical to be able to ensure that a person can take their medicine and also benefit from it.
How do you think about, just as we wrap up, connecting this to the core business, right? I mean, this is not for profit pricing, this is maybe some philanthropic support for countries as they try to train health workforces. How do you think about that connection to the core business so that this is sustainable? It doesn't just become something you do now, maybe in the wake of COVID, but something that really goes on for a long time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at the end, it is core to our business to be able to provide medicines for the world. And I think that this is just a lesson in different parts of the world need different strategies. We have a very different strategy for the developing world. We have a very different strategy for specific countries. And I think what this is just our expression of a different strategy in a part of the world where the needs are very different. We already make these medicines, so to be able to provide them to more people is very much a part and parcel of our existing business. And it is sustainable because we're making it everywhere already, right? And we're providing it to the world already. We just need to focus on how to get it to this specific part of the world where the needs are very different. Every country is even very different. But if there's one thing that we've learned, Raj, and I'll take a lesson from maybe another initiative that has been very successful at Pfizer that gives us hope that the Accord for a Healthier World, is going to bring ultimately the benefit that we believe it will. And it's an initiative that started actually in 2016 as a part of the Pfizer Foundation. So the Pfizer Foundation is a separate legal entity from Pfizer. I'm on the board of the Pfizer Foundation. And we, since 2016, initiated a program called the Global Health Innovation Grants, where the idea behind this is to provide grants to local entrepreneurs, and in doing so, support their work to create local solutions that are most relevant and most meaningful to that country or to that community. And I think in the end, the reason why the Accord for a Healthy World needs to take on a dimension of, not just dropping the medicine off, but making sure that we can get it into the community, that's really critical, and that's where the sustainability is because of what we've seen in these innovation grants. Since in the last 5 years, through the work of these grants and through the support of local entrepreneurs who really focus on these community-based solutions, we've been able to reach more than 6 million patients, give medicines to more than 6 million people, train more than 80,000 healthcare workers through partnerships of many. And we created more than 1,000 additional sites of care in parts of Africa that didn't exist before. So I think we already have proof of concept that this can work. It needs to work in a local community, and now we just need to, we need to take what we're doing on the Accord, those sets of products that we all create, what we're providing in the Accord, and translate that to the various countries that we're intending this for.
It's such a great analogy for what we're all here talking about at Davos, which is starting at the local community level, doing things that work for people, but then scaling it up into these numbers, these hundreds of millions, and even 1.2 billion, I think that you're
That's
after
the
with
1.2
Accord.
that we're after, exactly. And I think that this model to scale is just so important because it is different. I think we have to understand that every country, even if you're in the developing world, that looks different too. And we're hearing that from our interactions with the Accord. The five initial countries that we have created agreements with, each one of them wants something a little different.
Well, it's fascinating to get a few minutes with you to hear some of what you're talking about at this World Economic Forum annual meeting. Thank you for being with us. Thanks, Angela.
Thanks, Raj.